What does smart growth look like in San Diego? More homes, taller buildings, and increased transit while maintaining property values and protecting the character of a neighborhood can be tricky. Here to talk about the challenges are my guest, Eric Bruvold with National University Institute for Policy Research and Dave Gadsky with the nonprofit group Community Housing Works. And welcome to Evening Edition.
Good to be here.
Now, Eric, terms like smart growth, density, these can be kind of trigger terms for certain communities. We all remember back in May in Claremont, sort of this outspoken rising of the community members when they were talking about adding taller buildings and things for a trolley stop. So how do you manage community growth, get people on board while still addressing community concerns?
You know, I think you need to do two things. You need to first acknowledge that the region is going to grow and that there's no way for us to pull up the drawbridge. But then secondly is to provide assurances to the community that you'll be good stewards and think about how through design and elements of architecture you can build projects that enhance a community rather than detract from it.
And Dave, our region is expected to grow by at least 1 million people in the next 3 decades. What should city leaders be doing or county leaders be doing to address housing density and affordable housing now?
Well, we need to recognize that the next 30 years can't look like the last 30 years. You know, I'm a San Diego native, and the whole time I was growing up, there was this thing called the future urbanizing area. Well, that area is now Carmel Valley, Forest Ranch, and other neighborhoods like that. And we don't have well identified where the next wave of growth is going to come from. And so we need to create community plans that responsibly reuse and infill our existing neighborhoods and corridors, particularly around transit stops and other infrastructure that will help make the mobility, people get to their jobs, that much easier.
Do you think that home ownership will be as important in the future to, let's say, the millennials as compared to previous generations?
You know, it's interesting. The Pew Research Center did a study and found that 45% of people think that owning a home is important to be considered middle class. That compares to 70% in 1991. So attitudes are certainly changing, and part of that's changing because of new attitudes from the millennials. Another fascinating story is the millennials would much rather give up their car than give up their computer or smartphone.
All right, so Eric, how does this shift, either giving up the car or not necessarily owning a home, how does that affect trying to grow and develop future neighborhoods?
Well, I mean, I think the really good news is that one of the things that we sort of are at a stopping or a nexus point is that we grew a number of suburbs right after the Second World War. There are opportunities really throughout those communities to think about smart ways to address the housing demands and preferences of this new generation and the generation even that comes after them in terms of what they want from housing. So to think about how we take old retail centers and redo them, how we take commercial corridors like El Cajon Boulevard or Moreno Boulevard and retrofit them in a way that, again, enhances a community.
What kind of infrastructure do you think will be needed to support 1 million more people, or 4 million, let's say, total here in San Diego area?
Well, the region's making billion-dollar investments, actually $1.7 billion to build a trolley from Old Town up to the University City area. It's going to spend several $1 billion building managed lanes on its freeways so that we can have both carpools and rapid buses go up and down those. There's long-term plans to extend the trolley out to East Lake and to communities in the eastern part of Chula Vista. So we're going to be building the infrastructure. The question is, are we going to leverage that infrastructure, or are we going to export our housing out to southern Riverside County and have tens, if not hundreds of thousands people stuck on I-15 for 8 hours a day?
And commuting, but let's talk about affordable housing, Dave. So let's say we have this infrastructure and we do this retrofitting. How do you also add in affordable housing? Because without that, you don't have people to live here that can afford to live here.
Part of it is providing a diversity of housing types.
So the different types of diversity as far as like mixed use housing, is that what you're thinking about?
Exactly, smaller housing, things that are naturally affordable, things that recognize the demographics are different, that we have a lot more aging people in our society and they may need smaller residences, young people who are waiting longer to get married. And right now we've got plans that are largely based in single family housing, and providing more multifamily housing opportunities is important.
Okay.
So I mean, if we take 10 acres of land and we tell a developer that they can build 20 units on it, the developer is going to look and simply say, well, what's the best return I can get for those 20 units? And they tend to be bigger, more amenities, higher luxury items. If we started to base our plans more around square footage or number of bedrooms, or really sort of an idea to try and incent people to sort of get the kinds of communities and the types of homes that we were building a while ago in this community, we could have more affordable options for people.
All right, well, good discussion that can be continued on our website, kpbs.org. Eric Bruvald and David Gadsky, thank you very much.
Thank you.